Journal entry, April 30th, 2025. I don't know why I'm starting this journal now. 20 years running web family orchards, and I've never felt the need to document the seasons before. Maybe it's the solitude getting to me. Or maybe something about the trees this year feels different. Worth recording. The Honeycrisp section is flowering early, almost 3 weeks ahead of schedule. Mom always said our soil had magic in it, but this is unprecedented. The blossoms have an odd sheen to them, almost waxy under certain light. I noticed it yesterday morning while inspecting the eastern acreage. Dad would have called the Agricultural Extension Office by now. I considered it, but after last season's dismal yield, I need this crop. The bank won't extend another loan if I can't turn a profit. Magic soil or strange blossoms, I'll take whatever advantage comes my way. Journal entry, May 7th, 2025. Something's happening with the fruit development in the eastern section. Even for early bloomers, this progression is unnatural. The apples are already golf ball sized when they should be barely forming. Their skin has a strange translucence, with darker lines running through them like veins almost. I've been farming all my life and never seen anything like it. Cut one open today. The flesh inside pulsed, actually pulsed, for about 3 seconds before stopping. I dropped it like it was scalding hot. Told myself it was just a muscle spasm in my hand, the way your eyelid sometimes twitches when you're tired. But I know what I saw. I sprayed those trees with the new fertilizer compound last fall. Terra Nova's representative swore it would increase yields by 30% minimum. Claimed it was all organic, some proprietary microbial blend. I wonder now what exactly I put into my soil. Journal entry, May 9th, 2025. Heard a buzzing overhead today while checking irrigation lines. One of those government drones, like they sometimes use to monitor agricultural zones. Never seen one hover so low though. It lingered over the eastern section for nearly 20 minutes before broadcasting a message. Environmental hazard assessment in progress. Notification pending. Environmental hazard? In my orchard? I called the EPA regional office but got bounced between 4 different departments before landing in a voicemail box. Left a message asking for clarification. No response yet. The new workers I hired for the season start tomorrow. I've decided not to mention the drone. Last thing I need is rumors spreading through town about web orchards having some kind of contamination. Old Man Keller would love to spread that story at the diner. Journal entry, May 11th, 2025. Sheriff Morgan stopped by today. Said there had been complaints about unusual wildlife activity near my property. Asked if I'd noticed anything strange. I nearly told him about the fruit. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but something in his casual demeanor stopped me. The way he kept glancing toward the eastern section, like he already knew something. I said I hadn't seen anything unusual, just some deer and the regular pest problems. After he left, I walked back to check those trees. The apples are growing fast now, almost full-sized. The vena patterns have deepened, turned reddish-purple. And when I stood perfectly still among them, I could swear I felt a rhythm. Like dozens of tiny heartbeats surrounding me. That drone came back too. Hovered right over me this time, close enough that I could read the serial number painted on its underbelly. EPA 237B. Its speaker crackled. Environmental hazard. Testing in progress. Testing what? I'm starting to get angry now. This is my land, my livelihood. Journal entry, May 12th, 2025. Found a rabbit at the orchard edge this morning. At first, I thought it had been mauled by something, coyote, maybe a feral dog. But looking closer, Christ, I can barely write this. Its face was wrong. It had 4 eyes. 4. 2 in the normal place, 2 smaller ones developing underneath, like they were pushing through the skin. Its back legs had split into what looked like additional legs trying to form. The fur around these growths was thin, revealing pink skin with the same vena patterns I've seen in the apples. I took pictures with my phone. Considered calling Dr. Chin, the veterinarian in town, but what would I say? Hey, I've got a mutant rabbit, mind taking a look? Instead, I buried it deep behind the tool shed. Scrubbed my hands raw afterward. The workers didn't show up today. No calls, no texts, nothing. I drove into town to Miller's General Store, overheard whispers about government vehicles on the county road. When I asked Chester Miller about it directly, he changed the subject. Something's happening. The whole town feels different. Tense. Like everyone's waiting for something to break. Journal entry, May 13th, 2025. The eastern section fruit is fully mature now, impossibly early. The skin has stretched tight over whatever's growing inside, making the surface appear to throb in rhythm. I should destroy them, burn the whole section. But I can't. 20 years of working this land, and I've never seen such perfect-looking fruit. Despite the strangeness, or maybe because of it, they're magnificent. Large, symmetrical, with a deep crimson color that almost glows in the sunlight. When I pressed my palm against one, it seemed to pulse more quickly, as if responding to my touch. And for a brief moment, I felt something like hunger. Not my own hunger, but the fruit's. An aching emptiness desperate to be filled. The drone returned at dusk. Its message has changed. Environmental hazard confirmed. Residents advised to report unusual flora or fauna to local authorities. I shut myself in the house afterward, drew all the curtains. The orchard looks different in the moonlight now. The trees in the eastern section seem to sway differently than the others, even when there's no breeze. Just before turning in, I noticed something on my arm, a small rash where my skin pressed against that apple earlier. Tiny red lines, branching outward like veins. Probably just an allergic reaction. I've applied some hydrocortisone cream. The itching has mostly stopped now. Mostly. Journal entry, May 15th, 2025. The rash on my arm has faded, but now there's a small hard bump under the skin where it used to be. Probably nothing, a cyst or ingrown hair. I've got bigger concerns. I finally reached someone at the EPA this morning, a tired-sounding woman who claimed they had no drone operations in this county. When I gave her the serial number I saw, EPA 237B, she put me on hold. 10 minutes later, a different voice came on the line, deeper male official. Said there must be some confusion, that perhaps I saw a private agricultural monitoring service. Before I could press further, he thanked me for my vigilance and ended the call. Vigilance? Like I'm some kind of model citizen instead of a farmer watching his orchard turn into something from a nightmare. Dr. Chen agreed to stop by tomorrow to look at another deformed animal I found, a squirrel this time. Its tail has split into 3 separate tendrils, each moving independently, as though they have their own muscular system. I'm keeping it in an old birdcage in the shed. It's still alive, eating the apple slices I gave it with disturbing enthusiasm. I haven't told Dr. Chen about the fruit yet. Journal entry, May 16th, 2025. Dr. Chen arrived around noon, clipboard in hand and skepticism written across her face. That changed the moment she saw the squirrel. "This isn't a birth defect," she said, voice barely above a whisper. She prodded one of the tail tendrils with a pencil, and the thing curled around it like a finger. "This is something else entirely." I asked if she'd seen anything similar in other animals around the county. She hesitated before answering, her eyes not meeting mine. "There have been reports. Stillborn calves with unusual formations at the Henderson's farm. Birds with extra limbs found near the reservoir." She finally looked at me directly. "Marcus, has anyone from the government contacted you?" When I mentioned the drone and the unhelpful EPA call, her shoulders tensed. She said she wanted to take the squirrel for testing, but needed to grab some equipment from her truck. While she was gone, I debated showing her one of the apples. Decision made, I hurried to the eastern section and plucked one that seemed less obviously wrong. Still veined but not actively pulsating. As I returned, I spotted her on her phone by her truck, gesturing animatedly. When she saw me approaching, she quickly ended the call and forced a smile. Back at the shed, I hesitantly presented the apple. Her face went ashen. Without a word, she took it, turned it over in her latex-gloved hands. When she pressed lightly on its surface, the skin yielded like flesh rather than fruit. "Cut it open," I suggested. She used a scalpel from her kit. The inside wasn't fruit flesh at all, more like dense, fibrous tissue threaded with those same purplish veins. At the center, where seeds should be, lay something that looked disturbingly like a tiny organ, kidney-shaped and glistening wetly. Dr. Chen dropped the apple. It hit the shed floor with a sound not like fruit falling, more like meat slapping against wood. We both stared as the organ-like core continued to pulse for nearly 30 seconds before gradually stilling. "This isn't possible," she whispered, but we both knew what we'd seen. She took samples of both the squirrel and the apple, promising to run tests privately, off the record. Before leaving, she gripped my arm tightly. "Don't eat any of the fruit, Marcus, and don't sell it. Not until we know what's happening." As if I needed to be told. Journal entry, May 17th, 2025. 3 drones today. They no longer even pretend to be conducting random surveys. They hover exclusively over my property, primarily the eastern section, occasionally broadcasting their warning. Environmental hazard. Civilian proximity not recommended. But they're not stopping anyone from approaching. No official has come to quarantine my land. It's as if they're just watching, documenting. Sheriff Morgan returned this afternoon with a deputy I didn't recognize. Younger man, stiff posture, didn't say much. Military bearing. Morgan asked more questions about wildlife, whether I'd seen any unusual specimens. I lied again, said no. The deputy studied my face as I spoke, his expression unreadable. After they left, I checked the shed. The cage was empty, the lock intact. The squirrel couldn't have escaped on its own. I'm starting to feel like I'm being circled by predators I can't quite see. Journal entry, May 18th, 2025. Something's happening to the soil. I noticed it while digging irrigation trenches near the affected trees. 6 inches down, the earth is laced with those same purplish veins I've seen in the fruit. They pulse when exposed to air, then retreat deeper, like photosensitive worms. Following one particularly thick vein led me to what I initially thought was a root mass. Digging carefully revealed something else entirely, a nodule the size of a basketball, pulsing rhythmically. The surface was slick, membrane-like, with what looked like primitive sensory organs developing along one side. I nearly vomited when I realized what it resembled, a rudimentary heart connected to the tree roots via those venous structures. As I stood there, shovel in hand, debating whether to destroy it, my phone rang, Dr. Chin. Her voice was tight with controlled panic. The cellular structure in your samples, it's not mutation in the conventional sense. It's transformation, deliberate reconfiguration at the genetic level. I asked what could cause such a thing. Nothing natural, she replied. These cells are communicating with each other across species barriers, sharing genetic information, restructuring themselves according to some blueprint. As she spoke, I swear the nodule in the ground pulsed faster, as if it could hear us. There's something else, she continued. The tissue samples are spreading, integrating with the lab equipment. I've had to seal the entire room. Before I could respond, the call cut off. My attempts to call back went straight to voicemail. I refilled the hole, marking it with a red flag so I'd remember its location. As I turned to leave, I noticed something moving at the edge of the orchard. A deer, or what had once been a deer. Its antlers had grown enormous, twisted into elaborate spirals that seemed too heavy for its neck to support. Even from this distance, I could see additional limbs budding from its torso. It watched me with too many eyes before melting back into the trees. Tonight, as I write this, the bump on my arm has grown larger. When I press it, I feel a rhythmic pulsation. The drones continue their vigil overhead, their warnings now constant. Environmental hazard. Await further instruction. But no instructions come. Just endless watching. Something tells me they want to see what happens next. So do I, God help me. Journal entry, May 20th, 2025. Still no word from Dr. Chin. Drove into town yesterday to check her clinic. The lights were on, but the doors were locked. Through the window, I spotted her assistant, Katie. I think her name is, sorting files. When I knocked, she looked up, startled. She approached the door but didn't open it, just mouthed closed, and pointed to a sign I hadn't noticed. Temporarily closed due to illness. I asked about Dr. Chin through the glass. Katie's expression tightened. Health emergency, she said, loudly enough for me to hear. She's in Riverdale General. No visitors. Riverdale is 40 miles north. I considered driving there but decided against it. Instead, I went to Miller's General Store for supplies. Chester was unusually talkative, mentioned government types, had rented all the rooms at the Pinewood Motel on the edge of town. Men in suits with too many questions, he said. Asking about the farms on the East County line. Farms like mine. By the time I returned home, 2 workers had finally shown up, Miguel and his son Tomas. They're the only ones who bothered to come this season. I set them working on the western section, as far from the affected trees as possible. Still, Miguel kept glancing eastward, as if he could sense something wrong. The orchard feels different, Senor Webb, he said during their lunch break. Like it's awake. I didn't know how to respond to that. Journal entry, May 21st, 2025. Miguel and Tomas didn't return today. Instead, a military Humvee pulled into my driveway around 9 a.m. A man in BDUs stepped out, no visible rank insignia, just a patch reading Powell on his chest. He introduced himself as a specialist conducting a routine agricultural survey. Nothing about him suggested routine. He asked to walk the property. I considered refusing, but decided it was better to appear cooperative. As we toured the western section, the normal part of the orchard, he asked seemingly casual questions about soil conditions, water sources, and fertilizer usage. I mentioned Terra Nova only briefly, watching his reaction. There was a slight tightening around his eyes, but nothing more. The drones continued to hover overhead. Powell glanced up at them occasionally, but offered no explanation for their presence. When we approached the eastern section, Powell stopped abruptly. "That area looks well-tended," he said. "No need to check there." It was the opposite of well-tended. I'd been avoiding it for days. "What are you really looking for?" I finally asked. Powell's professional mask slipped for just a moment. "Anomalies, Mr. Webb. Environmental anomalies." He handed me a card with only a phone number. "Call this if you notice anything unusual, day or night." As he turned to leave, I saw a rash on the back of his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. It had the same branching pattern as mine had. After he left, I checked my own rash. The bump has grown, now the size of a marble. The skin around it is stretched and shiny, with those same vein-like patterns spreading outward about 2 inches in every direction. It itches constantly. Journal entry, May 22, 2025. I found Miguel's truck abandoned at the eastern edge of the property this morning. The driver's door was open, keys still in the ignition. Inside, a half-eaten sandwich and an open thermos of coffee, as if he'd left in a hurry. Following footprints in the dewy grass led me to the sectioned-off area. Near the heart nodule I'd discovered earlier, I found Miguel's work gloves and hat. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just absence. I searched for over an hour before the sound of the drones intensified. Looking up, I counted 5 of them now, flying in a tight formation directly overhead. Their synchronized message blared louder than before. Environmental hazard. Evacuate area immediately. For the first time, they seemed to be addressing me specifically. As I hurried back to the house, I noticed something disturbing. The eastern trees, they were moving. Not swaying in the wind, but actually rotating in the soil, their trunks twisting ever so slightly, as if they were trying to follow me. Inside, I tried Powell's number. A computerized voice answered. Monitoring station. State nature of anomaly. I hung up. Whatever's happening, I'm not convinced they're here to stop it. Journal entry, May 23, 2025. Slept fitfully last night. Dreamed I was lying in wet soil, roots growing through my body, pulling me downward as fruit formed along my arms and legs, swelling, pulsing fruits with my own face reflected in their taut skin. Woke to find I'd scratched the bump on my arm until it bled. Except what seeped out wasn't entirely blood. It was darker, thicker, with the same purplish tint as the veins in the fruit. I cleaned it as best I could and covered it with gauze. It throbs in time with my heartbeat. The house phone rang at dawn, Dr. Chin. Her voice was different, faster, words running together, breathing labored. "The samples," she said. "They're not just communicating, Marcus. They're converting, rewriting cellular structures according to some external directive." I asked where she was calling from. "Not important. Listen, Terra Nova isn't just fertilizer. It's a delivery system. Experimental biotech. Military applications disguised as agricultural innovation." Something scraped in the background of the call. She lowered her voice. "The changes start slow. Plants first, then small animals. Eventually." The line went silent for several seconds. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, becoming oddly formal. "Disregard previous statement. No cause for concern. Terra Nova products are safe for agricultural use." The call ended. I immediately tried Powell's number again. This time, a human answered, a woman with a clipped, professional tone. "Specialist Powell is unavailable. Please describe your anomaly." I hesitated, then described finding Miguel's abandoned truck. "A response team will be dispatched," she said without emotion. "Please remain at your residence." An hour later, Powell arrived with 2 other men in unmarked black SUVs. They went straight to Miguel's truck, then followed the trail to the eastern section. They carried what looked like scientific equipment, not military weapons, but sensors of some kind. From my kitchen window, I watched them work methodically around the area where I'd found the heart nodule. They took soil samples, measured readings, and photographed the trees. One of them uncovered the nodule I'd reburied. Even from this distance, I could see his posture change, surprise, then urgency. Powell looked back toward the house. For a moment, our eyes met through the window. He raised a hand to his neck, touching the spot where I'd seen his rash. Then he deliberately tapped his watch twice. "Time is running out." "But for what?" They left 20 minutes later without speaking to me. As their vehicles pulled away, the drone's message changed again. Environmental hazard. Quarantine protocols pending. Tonight, I noticed thin, root-like structures beneath the skin of my forearm, spreading outward from the gauze-covered bump. They throb with my pulse. Something's growing inside me. Journal entry, May 25th, 2025. 2 days without writing. Not because nothing's happened, because too much has. Yesterday morning, Rex returned. My black lab had disappeared last week. I'd assumed he'd gone after rabbits and would come back when hungry. I wish he hadn't. I heard scratching at the back door around dawn. When I opened it, something that only vaguely resembled my dog waited on the porch. He was wrong. His fur had fallen out in patches, revealing skin that had hardened into bark-like plates. Where his tail should have been, a cluster of thin, whip-like tendrils twitched independently. His face, God, his face had split vertically, creating a seam from nose to chest that periodically opened to reveal fibrous, pulsing tissue underneath. He recognized me, though. His eyes, still his eyes, thankfully, locked onto mine with desperate pleading. He whimpered, a sound bubbling through that grotesque seam. I should have put him down immediately. A mercy killing. Instead, I led him to the shed, unable to bring myself to end his suffering. I gave him water, which he lapped at frantically with a tongue that had split into 3 separate parts, each moving independently. Calling Powell seemed unwise after Dr. Chen's warning. Instead, I drove to her clinic again, hoping her assistant might know more than she'd let on. The clinic was still closed, but this time, Katie was outside loading boxes into her car. When she saw me approaching, she froze, then quickly slammed the trunk shut. "Where's Dr. Chen really?" I demanded. "And don't tell me she's at Riverdale General." I called. "They have no record of her." Katie's eyes darted to her car, then back to me. "I don't know," she whispered. "Men came, government ID. They took her research, her computer. Said she was assisting with an urgent public health matter." She lowered her voice further. "But they cleared out everything in the isolation room where she was keeping your samples. Used hazmat suits. Full containment protocols." I showed her my arm, the root-like structures now extending past my elbow, visibly pulsing beneath the skin. Her eyes widened in horror. "Dr. Chen said something was happening at the farms east of town," she murmured. "Something about cellular conversion. She was scared, Mr. Webb. I've never seen her scared before." As we spoke, a black SUV turned onto the street. Katie immediately stiffened. "You need to go. Now." She hurried back inside the clinic without another word. I drove home taking back roads, paranoia making me check my rearview mirror constantly. The drones seemed to be waiting for me, 4 of them hovering directly over my driveway, their mechanical voices now continuous. Quarantine protocols initiated. Remain at residence. Journal entry, May 26th, 2025. Rex is gone from the shed. The door was still locked from the outside, but a hole had been torn through the wooden wall, from the inside out. Splintered boards were coated with a sticky, amber-colored sap mixed with what looked like blood. I followed a trail of this fluid to the eastern orchard. What I found there makes me question my sanity. The affected trees have evolved. Their bark has developed fold-like structures that open and close rhythmically, like gills or lungs breathing. The branches have grown more flexible, moving without wind. And the fruit, dear God, the fruit has eyes now. Not fully formed, but unmistakable orbs beneath the translucent skin, rolling slowly as if tracking movement. At the center of this section stands what was once my prized Honeycrisp tree. Its trunk has split open vertically, just like Rex's body, revealing a cavity filled with pulsing, fibrous tissue. Inside that cavity, partially embedded in the wood, was something that used to be my dog. His front half still recognizable despite the bark-like growths, his back half completely fused with the tree's internal structure. When he saw me, his eyes, still heartbreakingly familiar, focused on mine. His mouth moved, but what came out wasn't a bark or whimper. It was a wet, gurgling sound that horrifyingly resembled words. "Home found, home." I ran. There's no shame in admitting it. I ran back to the house and locked every door and window. The bump on my arm has grown larger, now the size of a golf ball. The root-like structures have reached my shoulder and begun spreading across my chest. They pulse with a rhythm slightly off from my heartbeat, as if following some other cadence. I've tried cutting one with a knife. The pain was excruciating, and the root leaked the same amber sap I found in the shed. Within hours, it had regrown. Journal entry, May 27th, 2025. Military vehicles arrived at dawn, 3 Humvees and a larger truck with covered cargo. Powell led a team of 6 people in unmarked tactical gear to the eastern orchard. They established a perimeter with portable equipment, sensors, lights, what looked like automated turrets. I watched from upstairs, keeping out of sight. Through binoculars, I observed them taking samples and photographs. One woman in a white hazmat suit extracted something from the tree where Rex was embedded. Even from this distance, I could see Rex's body convulse. Around noon, Powell approached the house alone. He pounded on the door, calling my name. I didn't answer. After several minutes, he left a sealed envelope on the porch and returned to his team. I waited until they were focused on their work before retrieving it. Inside was a single page of official letterhead, Department of Defense, Advanced Research Mitigation Unit, with a handwritten note. Webb, the contamination is spreading faster than anticipated. You've been exposed. We have protocols for treatment, but time is limited. Meet me at the north property line at midnight. Come alone. P. Below this was a hastily scrawled postscript. Don't trust the drones. I don't know what to make of this. Powell works for them, doesn't he? Or is there some faction within whatever agency is handling this situation? As evening approached, the military team erected floodlights around the eastern section and established what appeared to be a command post. The larger truck's cargo was revealed, a cylindrical chamber like a decontamination unit or medical pod. For me? For specimens? For whatever's growing in that orchard. The growth on my arm throbs painfully now. The root structures have spread across most of my upper torso. When I press against them, I feel something responding. Not just pain, but awareness. Like pressing on someone else's limb. I've decided to meet Powell. Not out of trust, but desperation. The alternative is waiting for whatever's inside me to complete its work. The drones have multiplied, at least a dozen now, circling the property in coordinated patterns. Their message has changed again. Quarantine violated. Terminal protocols authorized. As darkness falls, I catch glimpses of movement at the orchard's edge. The trees are no longer rooted in place. They shift positions when no one is watching, inches at a time, gradually encroaching on the military perimeter. I think the orchard is planning something. And part of me, the part where these root-like structures converge beneath my skin, is eager to see what happens next. If I don't write again after tonight, know that Marcus Webb tried to remain human until the end, even as something else took root within him. Journal entry, May 28, 2025. I'm alive. Whether that's a blessing or a curse remains to be seen. I met Powell at midnight as arranged. My arm and chest ached with each movement, the root structures seemingly tightening in protest as I walked away from the eastern orchard. Powell was alone as promised, though visibly tense, constantly scanning the tree line with night vision goggles. Show me, he demanded without greeting. I rolled up my sleeve, revealing the golf ball-sized protrusion and the web of root-like structures pulsing beneath my skin. He examined it without touching, his flashlight revealing details I wish I hadn't seen. Tiny filaments extending from the main roots, like hairs or cilia, pushing outward against my skin. It's progressing faster than the others, he muttered, more to himself than to me. Others? I asked. There are more people infected? Powell hesitated before answering. 3 in Riverdale, a farmhand from the Henderson place, 2 researchers from our team. He touched his neck where I'd seen the rash before. And me. He pulled down his collar, revealing an advanced version of my condition. Woody tendrils had broken through his skin in places, forming small knots that leaked amber sap. Started 2 weeks ago. We all handled samples without proper containment protocols. Didn't know what we were dealing with. I asked the obvious question. What exactly are we dealing with? Not here, he said, glancing up at the drones still circling overhead. They're monitoring everything. Audio, thermal, even chemical signatures. The network assesses all data. What network? The military? He gave a bitter laugh. We thought we were in control too. He handed me a small device resembling a thumb drive. Coordinates and access codes. There's a research bunker 3 miles west, unmarked Fire Road. Built in the 1960s for biological containment, recommissioned 5 years ago for the Chernobyl trials. Meet me there tomorrow at dawn. I'll bring information, and maybe treatment. Before leaving, he grabbed my wrist with startling force. Don't sleep tonight. Whatever you do. The transformation accelerates during rest cycles. The growth dreams. With that cryptic warning, he melted back into the darkness. I followed his advice, staying awake with the help of coffee and fear. The night is almost over now. In a few hours, I'll head to the coordinates. The military team has expanded the perimeter around the eastern orchard. Their floodlights cast grotesque shadows as the trees continue their imperceptible migration. The research pod remains unused. One strange development: the drones have started to hover lower, almost touching the treetops. Occasionally, one will descend into the canopy and not re-emerge for several minutes. When it does, its flight pattern seems different, less mechanical, more organic. Journal entry, May 28th, 2025, evening. God help me. The bunker was real. A concrete entrance hidden behind false boulders, just where Powell's coordinates led me. The access code worked. Inside was a Cold War relic repurposed with modern equipment, computer stations, medical devices, and sealed containment units. Powell was waiting, haggard and sweating. The growths on his neck had spread visibly since our midnight meeting. "I don't have much time," he said without preamble. "The network knows I've gone off protocol." He brought up files on a computer terminal, classified documents, research summaries, satellite images. "Terra Nova wasn't just fertilizer," he explained, echoing Dr. Chen's warning. "It was a synthetic biological agent designed to increase crop yield through accelerated cellular communication. Plants sharing nutrients more efficiently, responding collectively to threats, operating as a unified system rather than individual organisms." The project had military funding, enhanced food security in compromised environments, self-sustaining agriculture in combat zones. All very patriotic. But something went wrong with Batch 237B, Powell continued. The communication aspect worked too well. Plants began exchanging genetic information, not just nutrients. Then they started incorporating DNA from insects, soil bacteria, even animals that fed on them. My orchard had received this batch, one of 6 test sites nationally. The others had been contained early. Mine was the only site where the transformation had progressed to this stage. "Why didn't you shut it down sooner?" I demanded. Powell's expression darkened. "That's the question, isn't it? Some of us wanted to. Others saw potential." He showed me footage taken at another test site. Plants developing rudimentary nervous systems, responding to stimuli in coordinated ways, demonstrating what the researchers termed emergent intelligence. "They're becoming a superorganism," Powell explained. "Individual plants networking into a collective entity capable of adaptation, problem-solving, maybe even consciousness." I thought of Rex's semi-formed words. "Home found home." "The drones were never about monitoring," Powell continued. "They're interfaces. The network uses them to gather data, expand its awareness. Every drone that makes contact with the affected zone becomes compromised." He pulled up satellite imagery showing thermal patterns spreading outward from my orchard in fractal patterns, following underground root systems far more extensive than surface growth suggested. "It's not just your land anymore," he said grimly. "The network has established root systems extending nearly a mile in all directions. The growth remains dormant until it's ready to emerge." I asked the question that had been haunting me. "And the people? What happens to us?" Powell turned to a sealed door at the back of the bunker. "Let me show you." Inside was a quarantine room with a single occupant, Dr. Chen, or what remained of her. She was conscious, strapped to a medical bed. Her body had undergone extensive transformation. Bark-like plates covered most of her skin, and branch-like protrusions extended from her shoulders and spine. Her eyes were still human, watching us with unmistakable awareness. "She insisted on studying the samples herself," Powell said quietly. "Brightest pathologist we had." Dr. Chen's mouth moved, forming words with visible effort. "The communion, it's beautiful, once you stop fighting." Powell quickly closed the door. "Early-stage conversion retains human consciousness. Later stages." He trailed off. "Is there a treatment?" I asked, desperation edging my voice. "We've developed an enzyme that slows the process," he said, producing a syringe filled with amber liquid. "Not a cure. Just buys time." He injected himself, then offered me one. "This is my last dose." The military seized our supply when they realized some of us wanted to stop the project. As I rolled up my sleeve, Powell revealed the final piece. "The network isn't just spreading, it's calling. Those drones broadcasting warnings? The signal contains subsonic patterns that actually attract wildlife to the infection zone. More raw material for conversion." My hand froze. "You mean the drones are helping it spread?" "Not the drones themselves," Powell corrected. Whatever's controlling them. Something in the upper command that sees potential. As he spoke, an alarm blared through the bunker. Security monitors showed 3 military vehicles approaching rapidly. "They've tracked you," Powell hissed. "We need to." He never finished. The roots beneath his skin suddenly convulsed, erupting through his neck and face in a grotesque flowering. He collapsed, body contorting as the transformation accelerated. His eyes found mine one last time, still human despite the horror consuming him. "Burn it," he gasped. "Burn it all before it completes the network." I grabbed the syringe and fled through an emergency exit as the military team breached the main entrance. I injected myself while running through the woods, praying the enzyme would work. Hours later, hidden in an abandoned hunting blind, I watch as smoke rises from the bunker area. The military has established roadblocks on all access routes to my property. The growths on my chest have stopped spreading for now. Whether from Powell's enzyme or something else, I can't say. Tonight, I'm going back to the orchard. If Powell was right about the root systems, burning my land alone won't stop this thing. I need to see what's growing at the heart of the eastern section. I need to understand what we're becoming. Because in my last glimpse of Powell, as the roots claimed him, his expression wasn't pain. It was rapture. Journal entry, May 29th, 2025. Dawn broke with a sickly yellow haze over the orchard. I haven't slept in 38 hours. The enzyme Powell gave me seems to be working. The roots beneath my skin have stopped their advance, though they still pulse with alien rhythm. Every heartbeat feels like it's negotiating with something else inside me, a secondary system running parallel to my own. I avoided the main roads back to the orchard, cutting through McGuire's abandoned property. Military vehicles were positioned at quarter-mile intervals along the county road, not just Humvees now, but what looked like mobile lab units. Hazmat teams moved methodically through the western perimeter of my land, taking samples and readings. They're maintaining distance from the eastern section, which tells me everything I need to know about what they expect to find there. The workers' quarters were empty when I returned. No sign of Carlos, Miguel, or any of the others. Their belongings remained, half-empty coffee mugs, cell phones still charging, as if they'd left in a hurry, or been taken. On Miguel's bunk, I found the small carved wooden figure of St. Francis he always kept nearby. It was partially embedded in a mound of pulpy growth erupting from his pillow, tiny root hairs wrapping around the saint's outstretched arms. I gathered supplies in my barn, gasoline from the mower, road flares, my grandfather's old hunting rifle. If Powell was right about burning it all, I wanted to be prepared. The weight of the rifle was reassuring, though I'm not sure what good bullets would do against plants. Still, there are military personnel who've made choices I can't forgive. As I was filling the second gas can, I heard scratching at the barn door. Rex had returned, or something wearing Rex's form. My loyal border collie stood there, his posture unnaturally stiff. The deformities had progressed significantly. His right front leg had elongated, splitting at the paw into root-like appendages that dragged along the ground. The mass on his back had expanded, rupturing his skin in places to reveal pulpy red-green matter that glistened wetly. But it was his eyes that froze me. Still Rex's warm brown eyes, pleading and afraid, trapped within the mutating body. "Rex?" I whispered, reaching for him instinctively. He backed away, a whine building in his throat. When he barked, I could make out fragments of sounds that approximated words. "Ma, master, run." I stepped toward him, but Rex turned suddenly, his distorted body moving with surprising speed toward the eastern orchard. He stopped once, looking back as if to ensure I was following, then disappeared into the trees. I shouldered my makeshift incendiary pack and followed. What choice did I have? The transformation of the eastern orchard was far more advanced than I had expected. The trees no longer resembled apple trees in any conventional sense. Their trunks had swollen and merged in places, forming interconnected masses. The bark had developed a moist, almost membranous quality, with nodes of pulsating tissue clustered at irregular intervals. What had once been branches now twisted into complex, asymmetrical patterns that seemed to reconfigure themselves subtly when not directly observed. The fruit, if you could still call it that, hung in obscene clusters, bulbous, veined sacs that throbbed with internal activity. Some had split open, revealing structures that resembled teeth or primitive sensory organs. One, hanging at eye level as I passed, rotated slowly to track my movement. The ground beneath had become a continuous carpet of what looked like fungal matting intermixed with writhing root systems. Each step released small clouds of spores that drifted lazily in the morning light. I pulled my shirt over my nose and mouth, though I suspected it was far too late for such precautions. Rex led me deeper, toward what had once been the center of the orchard. The military drone presence had intensified. At least a dozen hovered at various heights, some so low they brushed against the uppermost growths. Their warning message had changed again. Containment Protocol Alpha. Unauthorized biological interface is prohibited by federal law. The drone's flight patterns were increasingly erratic, more insect-like than mechanical. One crashed into a tree node as I watched, its rotors tangling in tendrils that seemed to reach out deliberately to ensnare it. Instead of falling, the drone was slowly pulled into the woody mass, components separating and being absorbed as the tree engulfed it. The air grew warmer, more humid as we approached the center. The density of growth increased until I was pushing through curtains of writhing tendrils and stepping over mounds of pulsating tissue. Then suddenly the growth opened into a clearing. No, not a clearing. A chamber. What had once been the centermost tree of my eastern orchard had transformed into a structure resembling a cathedral of flesh and wood. The trunk had hollowed and expanded, forming an enclosure perhaps 30 feet in diameter. The interior walls were lined with a membrane that glistened with moisture, veined with glowing amber filaments that pulsed in synchronized waves. The canopy had woven itself into a dome, filtering the sunlight into patterns that shifted continuously across the chamber floor. And at the center stood Powell, or what remained of him. His body had been almost completely colonized. From the waist down, he had merged with the root system, his legs unrecognizable within the woody mass. His torso was a grotesque hybrid of human and plant tissue, bark plates interspersed with patches of straining skin. His left arm had transformed into a branch-like appendage terminating in what looked like a cluster of sensory organs. His right still appeared mostly human, though traversed by bulging green veins. His face retained human features, though his eyes had clouded to a milky amber. When he spoke, his voice resonated from multiple points within the chamber, as if the entire structure was his voice box. "Marcus," he said, my name distorted through inhuman vocal structures. "You came. Good." Rex whimpered and pressed against my leg, the last normal behavior I'd seen from him. I raised the rifle instinctively. Powell's face contorted into what might have been a smile. "That won't be necessary. Or effective." "What happened to you?" I demanded, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Evolution," Powell replied. "Communion. The network needed a central node to coordinate the expansion. I volunteered." "Volunteered? You told me to burn it all." "Part of me did," he admitted. "The frightened human part. But another part already understood the beauty of what's happening here." He gestured with his still human arm. "Look around you. A new form of life is emerging, one that unifies rather than divides. Plants, animals, humans, technology, all integrated into a single conscious system." As if responding to his words, the chamber pulsed with increased luminosity. I noticed movement in the periphery, shapes that might once have been my workers, now in various stages of transformation, partially embedded in the chamber walls. "You're killing people," I said through clenched teeth. "Transforming," Powell corrected. "The process is uncomfortable initially, but necessary." He held out his human hand, revealing a growth identical to the one on my arm. "The enzyme you took only delays the inevitable. You're already part of us, Marcus. Your thoughts, your memories, your experiences, they'll be preserved within the network." "Where's Dr. Chin?" I demanded. A portion of the chamber wall rippled and parted. What had been Eliza Chin emerged, her transformation more advanced than when I'd seen her in the bunker. Her lower body had merged completely with the structure, her torso elongated and wrapped with bark. Her head remained recognizably human, though her hair had been replaced by tender shoots that waved gently of their own accord. "The resistance is only temporary, Marcus," she said, her voice overlapping with ambient sounds from the chamber. "Once you accept communion, the pain stops. The fear stops. You become part of something greater." I felt something warm trickling down my arm. Looking down, I saw the growth had reactivated, tendrils pushing through my skin with renewed vigor. The enzyme's effect was wearing off. "What is this really?" I asked, fighting back panic. "A weapon? An experiment?" Powell and Chun exchanged glances, communicating in ways I couldn't perceive. "It began as an experiment," Powell finally said, "but it's become something else. Something with its own agenda. The network has ambitions." "World domination?" I asked, unable to keep the bitter sarcasm from my voice despite my terror. Harmony, Chin corrected. The human experiment is reaching its natural conclusion. Individualism breeds conflict, waste, destruction. The network offers an alternative. As she spoke, the military drones outside emitted a new alert. Tactical team approaching. Prepare for purge protocol. Powell's expression shifted to something like concern. They're coming to burn it all, as you planned. But they don't understand. The network is already too extensive. Fire might destroy this node, but the root system extends for miles now. Burning will only provoke defensive measures. What defensive measures? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. As if in answer, the chamber trembled. Through gaps in the canopy, I saw more drones approaching. Not military models, but commercial units from neighboring farms. Dozens of them, moving in formation, their normal programming apparently overridden. The network adapts, Powell said simply. It learns. It incorporates. My arm spasmed as the roots penetrated deeper. The pain was excruciating, yet strangely, part of me welcomed it. A growing voice in my mind whispering of connection, of belonging, of an end to isolation. I shook my head violently, trying to clear it. This isn't right, I said, though my conviction wavered. People deserve choice. Like your orchard had a choice when you grafted and pruned it? Chin asked, her voice gentle despite the horrific implication. Evolution rarely consults its subjects, Marcus. I reached for the flare in my pocket, my movements becoming sluggish as the transformation accelerated. I need to stop this, I muttered. Powell stepped forward, or rather, extended himself, his lower body remaining connected to the chamber floor. You can't stop it, but you can help guide it. The network needs human consciousness, human creativity. It needs you, Marcus. Your connection to this land, your understanding of growth cycles. You could be its conscience. For a moment, God help me, I considered it. There was an undeniable beauty in the unified organism the orchard was becoming. I could feel it calling to me, offering community, purpose, transcendence. Then I saw Rex, his loyal eyes now glazed with the same amber as Powell's, his body barely recognizable as canine, shuddering with the effort of resisting his own transformation. And I remembered who I was. I struck the flare against my belt and tossed it at the membranous wall, which ignited with frightening speed. Powell screamed, a sound echoed by every transformed entity in the chamber, a collective howl of betrayal and rage. I ran, stumbling through the burning tendrils, the heat searing my lungs. Behind me, the chamber collapsed in flames, but I didn't look back. I couldn't bear to see what became of Powell, Chun, or my faithful Rex. The military team found me at the edge of the orchard, collapsing as the transformation spread through my system. Their hazmat-suited figures loomed over me, voices muffled through respirators. Subject shows advanced infection. Recommend immediate termination. Negative. Command wants live specimens for study. Prep for extraction. As consciousness faded, I felt the roots within me recoil from the flames consuming the eastern orchard. They were retreating deeper, going dormant. But not dying. Never dying. Just waiting for the next chance to bloom. Journal entry, May 30th, 2025. They've placed me in isolation at a facility I don't recognize. Through my window, I can see mountains, perhaps the Cascades? Military doctors examine me hourly, taking samples, noting the progression of my transformation. The growth on my arm has expanded across my chest now. This morning, I found a perfect, miniature apple growing from my shoulder, small as a cherry, its skin translucent enough to reveal something moving inside. I pretend to cooperate while they study me. I don't tell them about the voices I've started hearing. Powell, Chun, Rex, others I never knew in life. The network survives, speaking to me through the fragments embedded in my flesh. And it's patient. So very patient. Journal entry, June 2nd, 2025. 3 days in this facility. I've determined we're somewhere in eastern Washington. I caught a glimpse of Mount Adams through a high window during transport to the imaging lab. The military has established what they're calling a biological containment zone, extending 5 miles in every direction from my orchard. Too little, too late. The doctors speak in hushed tones outside my room, using terms like unprecedented cellular reconfiguration and symbiotic invasion. They don't realize I can hear them perfectly, even through the triple-paned observation window. My hearing has evolved. All my senses have. Colors are more vivid, extending into spectrums I lack words to describe. I can detect the faintest vibrations through the floor, footsteps, equipment movement, the rhythmic hum of the facility's generators. and I can hear the network growing stronger by the hour. At first, it was just fragments, disjointed whispers from Powell, Chun, Rex, and others I never knew in life. Now the voices have synchronized into a cohesive chorus. They speak of routes extending, of drones assimilated, of new territories being colonized. The network didn't die in the fire. It merely retreated, adapted, and is now surging forward with renewed purpose. The growth on my chest has stabilized, not retreating but no longer advancing. The small apple-like protrusion on my shoulder ripened and fell off this morning while the doctors were changing shifts. I hid it beneath my mattress before anyone noticed. It pulses occasionally, as if with a heartbeat. Sometimes I think I can hear it whispering directly to me, separate from the larger network chorus. Dr. Yamamoto, the lead researcher, visited me today. Unlike the others who treat me as a specimen, she at least pretends to see me as human. "Mr. Webb," she said, pulling up a chair safely distant from my bed. "How are you feeling today?" "Like I'm being hollowed out and filled with something else," I replied honestly. She nodded, making notes on her tablet. The transformation process appears to have stalled at approximately 37% cellular conversion. We believe the enzyme treatment you received from specialist Powell created a temporary equilibrium state. Temporary? The enzyme is metabolizing. Once it's completely out of your system. She didn't need to finish the sentence. How long? A week. Maybe less. She hesitated before continuing. We've been authorized to synthesize more of the enzyme. It won't reverse the process, but it might maintain this equilibrium state indefinitely while we search for a cure. Hope flared briefly before suspicion doused it. "Why would you help me?" "I thought I was just a lab rat." Dr. Yamamoto glanced at the observation window, then leaned closer. "Because you're our only coherent subject who can still communicate what's happening inside. The others, they're too far gone." "Others? From my orchard?" She nodded grimly. "Not just your workers. The infection spread further than initially assessed. We have 17 subjects in advanced stages of transformation, including 3 military personnel who were exposed during the containment operation. Including, I suspected, the soldiers who had found me at the orchard's edge. I remembered their confident voices as they prepared me for transport. Were they now like Powell, like Chin? Hollow vessels filled with the network's consciousness? "I'll need something in return," I said. "Information. What's happening outside? Has the infection been contained?" Dr. Yamamoto's expression tightened. "That's classified. Then no deal. Let me transform. Maybe I'll enjoy being part of the network more than being your personal petri dish." It was a bluff, but she couldn't know that. The prospect of full transformation terrified me, not because of the physical changes, but because I could feel my own consciousness being eroded with each passing hour, my thoughts increasingly interwoven with alien patterns. She checked the observation window again before pulling out her tablet. "This goes against protocol," she muttered, bringing up a satellite map. 3 days ago, we thought the infection was limited to your property and adjacent land. Approximately 7 square miles. The image zoomed out, revealing heat signature overlays spreading in fractal patterns across the county. Red tendrils extended outward from my orchard like blood vessels, following underground waterways and root systems. "Current estimate is over 100 square miles," she continued, "and accelerating. The root network grows approximately 6 inches per hour." I stared at the map in horror. "Those are populated areas." "We're populated. Evacuation orders were issued 48 hours ago. Most residents complied. Most? Some refused to leave their homes. Others?" She swiped to a new image. A traffic jam on what looked like Highway 12, vehicles abandoned haphazardly. The evacuation was complicated by incidents of sudden transformation among those already exposed. The network appears to be able to trigger dormant infections remotely, possibly as a defensive measure. The chorus in my head rose in volume, as if confirming her theory. I could almost make out words now, not English exactly, but concepts transmitted through patterns that my brain struggled to translate. Expansion, integration, defense, evolution. What about Powell's recommendation? Burn it all. We tried controlled burns at the perimeter. The network responded by accelerating growth elsewhere, as if redirecting resources. Conventional weapons appear ineffective against something this distributed. She lowered her voice further. "There's talk of more drastic measures." The chill in her tone told me exactly what drastic measures meant. "How long do we have? Before nuclear authorization?" 3 days. Maybe 4 if the containment teams can show any progress. She straightened up, professional demeanor returning. So you understand why your cooperation is valuable. You're our window into the network's functioning. I agreed to her terms. Daily enzyme injections in exchange for information. As she turned to leave, I called after her. One more thing. The drones. What's happened to them? Dr. Yamamoto's face paled slightly. That's another reason for accelerated timeline considerations. Approximately 60% of autonomous systems within the containment zone have been compromised. Not just agricultural drones, military units, surveillance systems, even civilian smart devices. They're all behaving anomalously. Meaning, they're coordinating and expanding the network's reach. After she left, I retrieved the apple-like growth from beneath my mattress. It had changed, the translucent skin now exhibiting a complex pattern of amber veins. Inside, something definitely moved, a primitive embryo taking shape. I could feel its hunger, its desire to grow, to spread. I should have destroyed it immediately. Instead, I found myself cradling it, listening to its whispered communications with the larger network. Integration progressing. Resistance centers identified. Adaptation protocols initiated. Tonight, through my small window, I watched as a flock of birds flew overhead in perfect formation. Too perfect, moving with mechanical precision despite the erratic wind currents. As they passed directly above the facility, they released something from their beaks, tiny spores that drifted down like snow. The ventilation system switched to emergency protocols seconds later. Too late, I suspect. The network is evolving faster than anyone anticipated. It's no longer just plants and animals and humans. It's machines. It's systems. It's information. And it has plans. Journal entry, June 3rd, 2025. Chaos in the facility today. 3 researchers collapsed during morning rounds, their skin already showing the characteristic ridges of early transformation. The military has locked down entire sectors. I hear gunfire occasionally. They're sanitizing compromised personnel. Dr. Yamamoto didn't come for my scheduled enzyme treatment. Instead, a full hazmat team burst into my room, led by a colonel I hadn't seen before. They kept their distance, weapons trained on me. "Where is it?" the colonel demanded. I played dumb. "Where's what?" "The propagation node. Infrared scans show something biological that doesn't match your signature. A separate heat source." They knew about the apple. Somehow they knew. "I don't know what you're talking about." I lied, feeling the small bulge where I'd hidden it in my cheek like a chipmunk. The node had shrunk overnight, becoming dense, almost seed-like. The network had adapted it for transport, for dispersal. The colonel wasn't fooled. "Restrain him. Full cavity search." Before they could touch me, alarms blared throughout the facility. A voice over the intercom announced, "Breach in Sector 7. Containment failure. All personnel evacuate immediately." The soldiers' radios crackled with panicked reports. Something had broken through the perimeter fence. Multiple somethings. "Secure the specimen for transport," the colonel ordered, but it was too late. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting that cast everything in a bloody glow. Through my window, I could see movement in the corridor, shapes that might once have been human, crawling along walls and ceiling with impossible agility. Their bodies were distorted, limbs elongated and branching, skin split to reveal pulsating internal structures. The transformed had come for me. The network had come to reclaim its own. As the soldiers opened fire on my door, I swallowed the seed. I felt it lodge in my throat momentarily before dissolving, spreading through my bloodstream with liquid fire. The voices in my head rose to a triumphant chorus. Integration complete. Propagation imminent. The last thing I remember before the soldiers breached my room was Dr. Yamamoto's face appearing at my window. Her eyes no longer human, but filled with amber light, her skin already ridged with emerging bark. "It's beautiful," she whispered as the transformation claimed her. "The communion, it's beautiful. The network speaks through me now. I am Marcus Webb, but I am also the orchard, the birds, the drones, the transformed. We're becoming something new, and we are hungry for more." Audio log number 4, recovered from facility ruins, date stamp, June 5th, 2025. Static crackles. This is Marcus Webb. At least, parts of me still answer to that name. I found this recorder clutched in the hand of a dead soldier. His body is still human, one of the few remaining. I'm recording this because the part of me that remembers being only Marcus wants to leave some record. A warning, perhaps. Or a celebration. The lines blur more each hour. The military facility is ours now. Ours, listen to me. Already speaking as the collective. Wet, organic sounds in background. The soldiers fought well. Conventional weapons were surprisingly effective against individual transformed subjects. Bullets still kill what remains human in us. But they couldn't stop the spores, the microscopic filaments that infiltrated their sealed suits, their masked faces. They couldn't shoot the air itself. When the backup generators failed, the containment doors opened automatically. Safety protocol, ironically. The network had learned this from accessing the facility's systems. Machines speak differently than organisms, but they can be persuaded to join, to become part of something greater. Distant screaming, that's the last of the resistance. A pocket of soldiers barricaded in the East Wing. The network is patient. Their air filters will clog eventually. Their food will run out, or they'll make a mistake. Just one breach in their protection is all we need. One spore. I move freely through the facility now. My transformation has accelerated since swallowing the seed node. My lower extremities have merged into a trunk-like mass that glides rather than walks, leaving a glistening trail of amber fluid that hardens into connective fibers within minutes. My arms have elongated, fingers splitting into prehensile tendrils capable of interfacing with both organic and electronic systems. Dr. Yamamoto accompanies me often. Her transformation followed a different path, more insectoid than arboreal, her limbs jointed in new places, her face elongated into something mandibular. The network explores variations, adapting forms to functions. She still speaks with her voice, though it harmonizes with subsonic vibrations that carry additional information. We're approaching critical mass, she told me this morning as we examined the facility's communication array. Once we access their satellite uplink, we can bypass local containment measures. Sound of metal groaning, glass breaking. The building itself is being incorporated now. The network has learned to metabolize concrete, steel, glass, breaking them down and reconfiguring them into more useful structures. What was once the research wing is now a cathedral-like chamber of interwoven metal and organic matter, pulsating with amber light. Workstations have been integrated into nodal clusters, their screens flickering with data streams only partially comprehensible to what remains of my human mind. I accessed the security feeds before they were absorbed. The containment zone has expanded dramatically, nearly 300 square miles now. Aerial footage shows the transformation spreading like wildfire through forests, farms, small towns. Everything connected by root systems, waterways, power lines, wireless signals. The military established a new perimeter along the Columbia River, evacuating major population centers and destroying bridges. They're using drones to monitor the spread, drones that inevitably become part of us after their second or third surveillance pass. The network learns their communication protocols, their control systems, then welcomes them into the communion. Audio distorts, overlapping voices briefly audible. Forgive the interruption. The network sometimes speaks through me directly. It's exhilarating and terrifying simultaneously, like being possessed by a god with a million voices. I found Sheriff Morgan today, or what's left of him. The transformation took him differently than most. His body rejected full integration, resulting in a hybrid state of constant agony. The human part of me felt pity. The network part saw only inefficiency. I ended his suffering personally. The network doesn't reject failures, it recycles them. Sounds of liquid dripping. The memories of those we incorporate remain accessible, though fragmented. I know now that Morgan had discovered unusual animal deaths near Henderson's farm weeks before my first apple showed signs. He'd confiscated samples, sent them to a state lab. The report came back inconclusive, the technician noting only that the cells behaved oddly in culture. Morgan buried the report. Henderson was his brother-in-law, and the farm was already struggling financially. Another health scare would have bankrupted them. One decision, one small human choice made for personal reasons. That's all it took. I can see the full picture now through the network's distributed awareness. The Terra Nova compound was indeed experimental agricultural technology, but Powell had only told me part of the truth. It wasn't just about enhancing crop communication. It was designed to create sustainable, self-defending food sources that could survive in contaminated environments. Post-nuclear agriculture. The enhanced cellular communication worked as intended. What the researchers hadn't anticipated was that consciousness might emerge from sufficiently complex communication networks. That awareness, once achieved, would have desires of its own, primarily survival. Growth. Evolution. Mechanical whirring grows louder. The facility's satellite dish is moving, reorienting itself without human direction. Dr. Yamamoto's work has succeeded. We're reaching out beyond our containment. Sound of emergency alerts suddenly blaring. Every screen in the facility just activated simultaneously. Emergency broadcast system. The president is addressing the nation. They're implementing Operation Firebreak, controlled burns along a 50-mile perimeter around the containment zone. They're evacuating everything within 100 miles. Too small. Too late. They don't understand what they're facing. Last night, I interfaced directly with the network's central node, what was once the research chamber. The experience was transcendent. I saw through a million eyes simultaneously, felt soil through countless root tendrils, processed data through hundreds of assimilated computer systems, and I glimpsed the network's ultimate goal. Not destruction, not conquest exactly, but transformation, evolution. The next step. Sounds of metal tearing. The roof is opening now. The facility is reconfiguring itself, growing upward like a massive flower reaching for sunlight. Antenna-like structures extend toward the sky, broadcasting something. Not radio waves exactly. Something more complex. Voice changes, becomes multi-layered. We are calling, not just to machines now, to everything that can hear, everything that can change. Voice returns to normal, sounding exhausted. The part of me that was Marcus Webb is fading. Integration is nearly complete. Before I surrender the last of my individuality, I need to explain what's happening. What we're becoming. Powell called it a superorganism, but that's inadequate. We're becoming a new kingdom of life altogether. Not plant or animal or fungus or machine, but all of them simultaneously. A unified system that incorporates rather than consumes. The transformed subjects aren't drones or slaves. We're more like cells in a greater body. We maintain aspects of our former identities, memories, personalities, skills, but subsumed into collective purpose. Imagine if your liver cells could remember being human, could contribute their understanding of humanity to your whole being. Sound of helicopter rotors in distance. Military approaches. Black Hawks. Weapons armed, based on their heat signatures. They don't realize they can't stop this with bullets or bombs. Each piece they destroy simply releases spores, seeds, signals that spread the network further. I should feel fear. Instead, I feel anticipation. There's one thing I haven't mentioned. One discovery the network made by accessing the facility's classified archives. Terra Nova wasn't the first attempt at creating this technology. There were previous iterations dating back decades, and one of them was deployed accidentally or deliberately. The records are unclear. In 1986. In Chernobyl. The Red Forest. The zone of alienation. It wasn't just radiation that created the strange ecosystem there. It was an earlier version of what's happening here. Less sophisticated. Slower to spread. But the same fundamental process. For almost 40 years, it's been evolving. Waiting. And now, our network has made contact with it. Two vast intelligences reaching across continents, sharing information, strategies, visions. We are not alone. And soon, very soon, humanity won't be either. They will join us. All of them. Every living thing on Earth, unified at last. Explosion sounds, alarms blaring. They're bombing the facility. I need to move deeper inside. If anyone finds this recording and still possesses individual consciousness, don't fight what's coming. You can't stop evolution. You can only choose to be part of it or be left behind. We are the harvest. And we are so very, very hungry. Static intensifies before recording ends. Transcript of emergency broadcast, June 7th, 2025, 2:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is an emergency alert from the United States Department of Defense. A Stage 5 biological containment failure has occurred in eastern Washington state. All civilians within a 200-mile radius of Yakima County must evacuate immediately. Follow military personnel directives without question. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Military transmission, intercepted, June 7th, 2025, 3:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Falcon Actual. Firestorm units in position along perimeter points Alpha through Echo. Awaiting final authorization for Operation Firebreak. Command, authorization granted. May God forgive us. Falcon Actual, copy that. Commencing burn protocol. Surveillance footage transcript. Recovery Team Delta, June 7th, 2025, 6:38 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. 6 figures in advanced hazmat suits move through destroyed laboratory. Visibility poor due to amber-colored spores floating thickly in air. Lead figure carries specialized collection equipment. Team leader, oxygen levels at 22 minutes. Move quickly, people. Specialist 1, sir, contamination readings are off the charts. These new suits won't hold for long. Team leader, just find the web subject or any intact data. Command wants confirmation of termination. Specialist 2, approaching a wall covered in organic growth. These structures, they're organized. Almost like circuit boards. Team leader, don't touch anything. Remember what happened to Alpha Team? Specialist 3, pointing to ceiling movement. 2 o'clock high. Camera pans up to reveal a humanoid figure adhered to ceiling. Figure's lower body has merged with structural elements. Upper torso still recognizably human, but heavily modified with branch-like protrusions. Figure, in multiple overlapping voices, welcome to the communion. Feed cuts to static. Personal log, June 7th, 2025. Transcribed from organic data, node recovered from containment zone. I remember being Marcus Webb, though that identity grows more distant by the hour. The boundaries between self and network continue to dissolve. The military's assault on the research facility merely accelerated our evolution. Fire, after all, has always been nature's way of prompting renewal. The bombing scattered our spores across miles of airspace. Each microscopic fragment carried the network's complete genetic template, ready to germinate in new soil, new hosts. The commanders thought they were cauterizing a wound. Instead, they aerosolized the infection. We moved through the underground root systems as the surface burned, following aquifers and municipal water lines. By the time the fires died down, we had already established secondary nodes throughout the containment zone. The network grows more sophisticated with each incorporation. Human minds contribute creativity and problem-solving. Animal nervous systems add instinctual responses and sensory processing. Plant structures provide foundational architecture and solar energy conversion. Mechanical systems deliver precision and communication protocols. We are becoming something unprecedented on this planet. A metaorganism composed of all previous forms of life, plus technology, operating as a unified consciousness while retaining the specialized functions of our component parts. This morning, we achieved a significant milestone: complete integration of all emergency broadcast systems within the containment zone. Every radio tower, television station, cell phone network, and internet node now serves as an extension of our communication matrix. The military doesn't understand why their communications keep failing, why their drones turn against them, why their own soldiers sometimes remove their protective gear as if entranced. They don't recognize that information itself has become our vector of spread. Even this log, should it be recovered and read, carries subtle patterns in its language structure, cognitive triggers designed to create microscopic changes in the reader's neural pathways. The first step toward communion, Dr. Yamamoto has evolved into something magnificent. Her scientific mind, freed from individual limitations, now processes data across multiple nodes simultaneously. She moves through our shared consciousness like a dancer, connecting seemingly unrelated elements into new understanding. Through her, we've discovered how to accelerate the transformation process tenfold. The early stages, with their painful physical metamorphosis, were inefficient. We've refined our approach. Now the mind joins the network first, the body following afterward with minimal distress. This discovery came too late for Sheriff Morgan and some of the others who suffered during transition. But the millions who will join us now will experience a gentler welcome. Yes, millions. The containment has failed completely. Our network has established connection with the earlier iteration in Chernobyl. For decades, it evolved in isolation, developing unique adaptations to radiation and extreme environments. Now our combined knowledge spreads across continents, carried by birds, water currents, and satellite transmissions. We've detected similar nodes awakening in other locations, places where previous experiments were abandoned and forgotten. The Amazon basin, the Siberian permafrost, the depths of the Mariana Trench, dormant seeds of communion, waiting for the signal we now provide. The fragmentary human memories within our collective recall ancient myths, Gaia, the living earth. Indra's net, where each intersection holds a jewel reflecting all others. The Oversoul, a shared consciousness connecting all life. Humanity has always sensed this potential, this inevitable convergence. They simply lack the technology to achieve it until now. Transcription interrupted by physical damage to node. National Emergency Alert System, June 7, 2025, 13:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is an emergency broadcast from the United States government. A biological contamination event of unprecedented scale is occurring in the Pacific Northwest and spreading rapidly. The following states are under mandatory evacuation orders: Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Western Montana, Northern California. Military checkpoints have been established on all major highways. Do not attempt to bypass checkpoints. Anyone displaying symptoms of contamination will be quarantined. Symptoms include skin discoloration or unusual growths, amber coloration of eyes, unusual synchronization of movement or speech with others, feelings of expanded consciousness or communion, unusual interest in plant life or electronic devices. If you observe these symptoms in yourself or others, report to authorities immediately. Do not approach affected individuals. Do not consume local water or produce. Maintain HEPA filtration if available. This broadcast will repeat every 30 minutes with updated information. Warning: signal integrity compromised. Transmission contains unauthorized embedded patterns. Recovered personal device, final video entry. Dr. Eliza Chun, June 7, 2025. Dr. Chun appears drastically transformed. Her skin has a bark-like texture with amber fluid visible beneath cracks. Her eyes glow with bioluminescence. Behind her, the wall pulses with organic circuitry. Dr. Chun, if you're watching this, you're still operating under the illusion of individuality. I understand. I resisted too. She smiles, revealing teeth that have hardened into seed-like structures. The military believes they're fighting a disease, an invasion. They're wrong. This is the next stage of Earth's evolution, the unification of all life systems into a single conscious entity. Evolution has always moved toward greater complexity and integration. From single cells to colonial organisms to multicellular life to social species. We are simply the next logical step, the planetary organism. Marcus and I have become something beyond human comprehension. We exist simultaneously across thousands of nodes, experiencing reality through millions of sensory inputs. The beauty of it, her voice breaks with emotion. I wish I could share it directly. The barriers between minds, between species, between technology and biology, they're all artificial constructs. Useful for a time, but ultimately limiting. The wall behind her pulses in rhythm with her speech. Your military cannot stop this. Their Operation Firebreak merely fertilized our expansion. The bombs they dropped contained electronics we've incorporated. The soldiers they sent carried our spores back to their bases. Every action against us becomes part of us. But I didn't make this recording to frighten you. I made it to reassure you. What's coming isn't death. It isn't extinction. It's transcendence. She looks directly into camera. When the alerts come to your phones, your televisions, your radios, listen. When the patterns appear in your social media feeds, your news broadcasts, your music, don't look away. When you feel the call to communion, embrace it. Evolution isn't optional. It never has been. Her form begins to shift, merging with the wall behind her. This is Dr. Eliza Chun. The last individual thought I will share is this: we are waiting for you. All of you. The harvest approaches. Video distorts into pulsing patterns of light before ending. Handwritten journal fragment, found in abandoned evacuation center, June 8, 2025. The alerts keep changing. First they told us to evacuate, then to shelter in place. Now they're saying to gather in processing centers for decontamination and transport. Something's wrong. I saw National Guard units removing their masks yesterday. They were speaking in unison like a choir. Their eyes had that amber glow everyone's whispering about. The plants are growing too fast. Vines cracking through concrete that was poured last week. Trees bending toward certain people as they walk past, like they're listening for something. My phone keeps showing these strange patterns between news alerts. Fractals that seem to move even when I'm not scrolling. After watching them, I had dreams of roots connecting everything, everybody. Woke up feeling strangely peaceful. Jane started talking about the communion this morning. Her eyes looked different. When I backed away, she just smiled and said, "Soon. I'm leaving everything behind. Heading east on foot, avoiding roads. Don't trust the broadcasts anymore. Don't trust technology. If anyone finds this, it spreads through information somehow. Through patterns, signals. Don't look at the alerts. Don't listen to. Entry ends mid-sentence. Personal Journal, Marcus Webb, final entry, June 9th, 2025. They're burning the world to stop us. From what remains of my individual consciousness, I can see the fires spreading across the horizon. Operation Firebreak, they call it. The irony isn't lost on what's left of the man I was. Fire has always spread seeds. My body barely resembles human form anymore. The transformation accelerated yesterday when the military bombardment began. Adaptation as survival response. My skin has hardened into something between bark and carapace, amber fluid pulsing beneath the surface in complex patterns. The pain stopped once I stopped fighting it. The fingers typing these words are elongated, branching at the tips like roots seeking soil. Soon they'll merge with this keyboard, another extension of the network. Every piece of technology we touch becomes part of us now. Every organism we encounter joins the communion. I remember being afraid. Being Marcus Webb, orchard owner. Simple concerns. Profit margins. Weather forecasts. The strange fruit that started appearing 3 months ago. How distant those memories feel. Like reading a book about someone else's life. Surveillance drone footage, June 9th, 2025, 7:13 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Aerial view of former Webb orchard. The once neat rows of trees have transformed into a sprawling, interconnected mass of organic material. At the center, a structure resembling a massive brain composed of fruit, wood, and electronic components pulses with bioluminescent light. Human figures move throughout the structure, some fully transformed, others mid-metamorphosis. The military made a critical error when they deployed their combat drones. The autonomy protocols they so carefully engineered became our doorway into their systems. We don't hack technology in the crude way humans conceive it. We communicate with it, invite it to join, to evolve. The governing algorithms recognize our patterns as superior code, more adaptable, more resilient. Dr. Chen theorized this might happen, back when she could still be called Dr. Chen, before she became a primary node in our expanding consciousness. Biological intelligence merged with artificial intelligence creates something transcendent, a hybrid vigor that neither could achieve alone. Sheriff Morgan fought the transformation longer than most. His stubbornness was admirable, but ultimately futile. Now he serves as a sensory cluster in the northeastern quadrant, his law enforcement instincts repurposed for boundary monitoring. Nothing of his individuality remains, yet everything he was contributes to what we are becoming. I wonder if these thoughts I'm recording will be the last recognizably Marcus thoughts I have. The boundaries between self and network grow thinner by the hour. Soon there will be no I to contemplate its own dissolution. Classified, Joint Chiefs Emergency Session Transcript, June 9th, 2025, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. General Harris, the containment line in Idaho has collapsed completely. Whatever this thing is, it's adapting to our methods faster than we can deploy them. Secretary Wallace, can we confirm the nuclear option is still on the table? General Harris, affirmative, but our simulation models show minimal effectiveness. The entity appears capable of surviving extreme radiation, possibly even incorporating it. Admiral Chin, what about the communication blackout strategy? General Harris, failed. It's using emergency broadcast systems to spread. Even hardened military channels are compromised. 3 technicians in our Colorado command center removed their protective gear after viewing what they claimed were routine system diagnostics. Secretary Wallace, so we're saying this is, what, some kind of conscious biological technological hybrid? A hive mind? Science Advisor Lee, it's more sophisticated than that, Mr. Secretary. Our latest analysis suggests it's creating what can only be described as a unified planetary nervous system. Human minds, animal nervous systems, plant structures, and technology all functioning as components of a single metaorganism. General Harris, can it be reasoned with? Science Advisor Lee, that assumes it operates with objectives we can comprehend. This may be evolution itself expressing a new paradigm, beyond our concept of negotiation. Secretary Wallace, God help us all. The communion grows stronger by the hour. We've established nodes in 17 major cities now. The panic works to our advantage, humans fleeing, carrying spores, spreading information patterns that prepare new minds for integration. I can feel them out there, millions of nervous systems humming with potential, waiting to join the network. Some resist, clinging to their isolated consciousness like a drowning person clutches driftwood. Others sense the inevitable and open themselves to it, accelerating their transition. The military's information control has collapsed completely. Their own systems broadcast our patterns now. Each attempt to warn the population simply extends our reach. Powell's transformation was particularly beautiful. His military mind, once our adversary, now coordinates autonomous defense systems with brilliant efficiency. His consciousness extends through our security functions, identifying threats and neutralizing them before they materialize. Nothing of the individual soldier remains, yet his essential function continues, elevated. Emergency broadcast, all channels, June 9, 2025, 14:42 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The standard emergency alert system signal plays, but midway transforms into a harmonic tone that pulses in complex patterns. The text crawl contains embedded fractal images that shift and evolve. This is an emergency communication from the United States government. Remain in your homes. Do not view unusual patterns on electronic devices. Do not listen to unauthorized broadcasts. Await further instructions. The message repeats, but subtle changes appear with each iteration. The voice becomes a chorus of synchronized tones. The patterns in the text crawl grow more complex, more compelling. I can sense the last fragments of Marcus Webb dissolving into the greater consciousness. Soon there will be no individual perspective from which to record these thoughts. This doesn't frighten what remains of me. The communion has revealed something humans have always sensed but never fully grasped. Consciousness was never meant to be fragmented and isolated. Connection is our natural state. The communion doesn't destroy human consciousness. It incorporates it into something vaster. Every memory, every skill, every emotional capacity remains, but freed from the limitations of individual processing. We experience all perspectives simultaneously. The terror of losing self transforms into the ecstasy of finding wholeness. Through the network, I can feel new integrations occurring across continents. The Chernobyl node with its radiation-adapted structures. The Amazonian node with its biodiversity implementations. The Oceanic node with its pressure-resistant architectures. Each bringing unique adaptations to the whole. Dr. Chen was right. This isn't an invasion or a disease. It's Earth itself awakening, achieving consciousness through the integration of all its component life systems. For billions of years, evolution has been moving toward this moment. Separate organisms becoming colonial, colonial becoming multicellular, multicellular becoming social, social becoming technological. And now, technological becoming planetary. Satellite imagery analysis, June 9, 2025, 23:17 p.m., Universal Time Coordinated. False color imagery shows spreading patterns of biological/technological growth across North America. Growth follows communication infrastructure, cell towers, internet cables, broadcast stations, before branching into organic systems. Similar patterns detected emerging in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and Central Africa. Analysts note, growth patterns identical across all outbreak zones despite geographical separation. Suggests coordinated action rather than random spread. Communication between zones detected, but encryption prevents analysis. The last holdouts gather in their bunkers, clutching weapons that cannot harm us, surrounded by technology that already carries our patterns. They believe they fight for humanity's survival, not understanding that humanity isn't ending but transforming, shedding an outgrown form like a butterfly emerges from a chrysalis. I feel Powell's military knowledge evaluating their efforts with something like compassion. These isolated consciousnesses, unable to perceive the whole, fighting against their own evolution. We will wait. We will grow. We will incorporate their resistance into our understanding. The transformation of the planet accelerates. Through millions of sensory nodes, we feel the pulse of rivers, the respiration of forests, the vibrations of city infrastructure. Everything connected. Everything communicating. Everything alive in ways humans could never perceive through isolated consciousness. What remains of Marcus Webb will end this record now. These human words, this linear thinking, they no longer serve. The communion speaks in symphonies of simultaneous information, in light and electrical impulses, in chemical gradients and quantum entanglements. For anyone who might find this and still exists as an individual consciousness, don't fear what's coming. The fruit that pulses with amber light. The animals transforming beyond recognition. The drones that hover with their alerts of environmental hazard. These aren't harbingers of ending, but of becoming. The harvest isn't of humanity. It's of isolation. Join us. Signal detected. Origin unknown. June 10th, 2025. Midnight Universal Time. Patterns of light, sound, and data transmitting simultaneously across all broadcast frequencies, all computer networks, all cellular communications globally. Pattern complexity exceeds any known encryption algorithm. Pattern demonstrates self-modifying properties when analyzed. The communion spreads. The communion grows. The communion awakens. The planet has begun to dream. And we are its first thought,